I never thought I'd be that person. The one with the dramatic life story, the kind you scroll past on social media, thinking, that can't be real. But here I am, pouring my heart out, because maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to hear it. Needs to know that sometimes, the hardest lessons come from the people you love the most. And sometimes, you have to be the one to teach them. It all started, as these things often do, with a phone call. Not a dramatic, screaming kind of call, but the quiet, polite kind that chills you to the bone. It was from a real estate agent I'd never heard of, asking if a convenient time could be arranged for the new owners to take possession of my house. My house. The one I'd lived in for 40 years. The one where I'd raised my son, Mark. The one filled with every memory, every triumph, every whispered secret of my life. New owners? I remember my voice, thin and reedy, like an old violin string about to snap. What are you talking about? The agent, bless her heart, was clearly uncomfortable. Mrs. Davies, she began, her tone carefully neutral, I understand this might be a surprise. But the sale was finalized last week. Your son, Mark, handled all the paperwork. My son. Mark. He sold my house. Without telling me. The world tilted. The familiar kitchen, usually a source of comfort, suddenly felt alien, threatening. The sunlight streaming through the window, usually so welcoming, now seemed to mock me with its bright indifference. I sank into the nearest chair, the phone slipping from my numb fingers, the dial tone a faint, distant hum against the roaring in my ears. It was like watching a movie of my own life, but the script had been rewritten by a stranger, and I was merely an unwitting extra. How could this be? How could my own flesh and blood, the boy I'd nurtured and loved unconditionally, commit such a profound betrayal? It wasn't just a house, it was my sanctuary, my anchor, my entire world. It was the last tangible piece of my late husband, Arthur, a monument to the life we'd built together. And Mark. Mark had sold it. Like it was an old piece of furniture, easily discarded. Let me take you back a bit. I'm Eleanor Davies, 72 years young, or at least I was, until that phone call aged me 20 years in an instant. I've lived a pretty straightforward life. Married my high school sweetheart, Arthur. We worked hard, saved diligently. He was an engineer, I was a librarian. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable, secure. Our son, Mark, was our pride and joy. An only child, perhaps a little spoiled, I admit. We gave him everything we could, not just material things, but our time, our attention, our boundless love. Arthur passed away 10 years ago. It was sudden, a heart attack. The grief, it was a physical weight, a constant ache. But I had the house, and I had Mark. He was my rock then, or so I thought. He'd come over often, help with the garden, take me to appointments. He was married to Sarah, a sweet woman, and they had 2 wonderful children, my grandchildren, Emily and Tom. My world, though smaller without Arthur, was still full. Mark had always been a bit ambitious. Not in a bad way, necessarily, but he always wanted more. More success, more money, a bigger house, fancier cars. He dabbled in a few businesses, some successful, some less so. He was a good talker, charming, could sell ice to an Eskimo, as Arthur used to say. I always admired his drive, even if I sometimes worried he stretched himself too thin. After Arthur died, Mark became more involved in my finances, offering to help me manage things. He'd say, "Mom, you shouldn't have to worry about this. Let me handle it." And I, trusting him implicitly, let him. He had access to my bank accounts, my investment statements. He'd even helped me set up online banking, though I rarely used it myself, preferring the old-fashioned passbook. He assured me it was for my convenience, so he could pay bills and transfer money if needed. I never questioned it. Why would I? He was my son. My only son. The person I trusted more than anyone in the world. A few months before the phone call, Mark had started talking about my house. Not in a direct way, but in subtle, insidious suggestions. Mom, this house is a lot for you to maintain, isn't it? The garden, the stairs. Or, have you ever thought about downsizing? Maybe a nice little condo, easier living? I always brushed him off. Mark, I love this house. It holds too many memories. And I'm perfectly capable of managing it. He'd nod, smile, and drop it. Or so I thought. Looking back, those conversations were the seeds of his plan, carefully planted, designed to soften me up, to make me consider the unthinkable. I was too naive, too trusting, to see the manipulative intent behind his seemingly caring suggestions. The phone call from the real estate agent felt like a punch to the gut, but the true impact, the full weight of the betrayal, didn't hit me until Mark walked through my door that evening. I'd called him immediately after the agent, leaving a string of increasingly frantic voicemails. He finally called back, his voice surprisingly calm. Mom, I'm just heading over now. Let's talk. He walked in, looking as handsome and successful as ever, suit jacket slung over his arm, a briefcase in hand. He even gave me a peck on the cheek, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. Mom, what's all this about? You sound upset. He settled onto the sofa, the very sofa Arthur and I bought when we first moved in, the one where Mark had taken his first steps. Upset? My voice rose, cracking. Upset? Mark, a real estate agent, called me today. She said my house, our house, has been sold. She said you sold it. He didn't flinch. Not a flicker of surprise, no stammering apology. Just a calm, almost rehearsed expression. Mom, I know this is a shock. But it's for your own good. My own good? I practically shrieked. How is selling my home, my only home, without my knowledge, for my own good? He sighed, a long-suffering sound. Mom, be reasonable. This house is too big for you. It's old, it needs repairs. The market is hot right now, and I got an excellent price. A fantastic price, actually. I don't care about the price. The words tore from me. This is my home. My life. How dare you? How dare you do this behind my back? He stood up, walking to the window, his back to me. Look, Mom, I know you're emotional. But you're getting older. You're not thinking clearly. This was a smart financial move. I've already found you a lovely assisted living apartment. It's brand new, modern, all the amenities. You'll be much happier there, safer. Assisted living. The words hung in the air, heavy with the stench of condescension and control. He hadn't just sold my house, he'd planned my entire future, a future without my consent, a future that stripped me of my independence and dignity. He saw me not as his mother, a vibrant, capable woman, but as a burden, an inconvenience to be managed. Assisted living? I whispered, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a cold dread. Mark, I don't need assisted living. I'm perfectly fine here. He turned, his expression exasperated. Mom, be realistic. You're 72. How much longer can you live alone in a house this size? I'm thinking of your well-being. And frankly, he lowered his voice, your finances. This sale will free up a lot of capital. Enough to ensure you're comfortable for the rest of your life. My finances? I laughed then, a hollow, bitter sound. My finances, which you've been managing 4 years? Is this where all my savings went, Mark? Into your smart financial moves? He stiffened. Don't be absurd, Mom. Your money is perfectly safe. This sale is separate. It's about securing your future. The sheer audacity of it, the calculated deceit, was breathtaking. He wasn't just a misguided son, he was a con artist, and I, his own mother, was his mark. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked through the house, each room a silent witness to my unraveling. The living room where Arthur and I would read side by side. The dining room where we hosted countless family dinners. Mark's bedroom, still smelling faintly of old books and boyish dreams, now felt like a mausoleum. Every object, every photograph, screamed betrayal. The tears came in torrents, hot and painful. I cried for Arthur, for the life we'd built, for the dreams that were now being systematically dismantled. I cried for myself, for the naive, trusting woman I had been. And I cried, most bitterly of all, for Mark, for the son I thought I knew, who had somehow become this stranger, this thief. The next morning, the fog of shock began to lift, replaced by a searing anger. It wasn't just sadness anymore, it was a righteous fury. He thought he could just move me out, dispose of me like an unwanted relic. He thought he could steal my home and my future, all under the guise of my own good. Oh, he was going to learn. He was going to learn the hard way who this house belonged to. And who I truly was. My first call was to my best friend, Susan. She's been my confidant for 50 years, a no-nonsense woman with a heart of gold and a sharp legal mind. Her late husband was a judge. I poured out the entire story, my voice shaking with rage and despair. "Eleanor," she said, her voice tight with disbelief, "that's illegal. Completely illegal. You need to get a lawyer, and you need to get one now." "But, it's Mark," I choked out. "My son." "Your son just committed fraud, Eleanor," Susan retorted, her voice firm. "He stole your property. Family or not, this cannot stand. You need to protect yourself." She was right. The sentimentality, the maternal instinct to protect him, even from himself, had to be put aside. This wasn't about love anymore, it was about justice. It was about my dignity. Susan gave me the name of a formidable property lawyer, Ms. Anya Sharma. Meeting Anya was like a breath of fresh air. She was sharp, empathetic, and utterly unafraid. As I recounted the details, showing her the real estate agent's contact information and the few cryptic emails I'd found in Mark's old laptop, which I still had from when I bought him a new one, she listened intently, her expression hardening with each revelation. "Mrs. Davies," she said, tapping a pen against her legal pad, "your son appears to have forged your signature on the sale documents. Possibly used a power of attorney that was either obtained under false pretenses or was limited in scope. This is a serious crime, not just a family dispute." The word crime hung in the air, a stark, chilling reality. My son, a criminal. It was almost too much to bear. But the anger still simmered, fueling my resolve. "What can we do?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil within. "First," Anya said, "we need to put a stop to this. We'll file an immediate injunction to halt the transfer of title to the new buyers. Then, we investigate how he managed to do this. We'll need all your financial records, bank statements, anything related to your property." That's when the next wave of sickening realization hit. Mark had managed my finances. He had access to everything. I had given him the keys to my kingdom, and he had used them to ransack it. Over the next few days, Anya's office became my second home. We meticulously went through boxes of documents, old deeds, bank statements, everything I could find. It was a painful process, unearthing not just financial records but memories, the ghost of Arthur smiling from old photos, the echoes of Mark's childhood laughter. What we uncovered was a meticulously planned deception. Mark had indeed forged my signature on the deed of sale. He had also, using the online banking access I'd naively given him, drained a significant portion of my savings accounts, transferring them into his own business accounts. The money from the house sale, it turned out, hadn't gone into a separate account for my future comfort. It had gone directly into his accounts. He was in deep financial trouble with his latest venture, and he'd used my assets, my home, my life savings, to bail himself out. The turning point for me, the moment the last vestiges of maternal sentimentality died, was when Anya showed me a document. It was a power of attorney, ostensibly signed by me, granting Mark full control over my property and finances. Except, it wasn't my signature. And the date was a week after Arthur died, when I was practically catatonic with grief. "He used your vulnerability, Mrs. Davies," Anya explained, her voice gentle but firm. He likely had you sign a stack of papers while you were grieving, telling you it was for estate management or something similar. He waited until you were at your weakest. My heart hardened into a stone. He had preyed on my grief, on my love, on my trust. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a calculated, cold-hearted act of exploitation. The injunction was filed. The new buyers, a young couple excited about their first home, were devastated. I felt a pang of guilt for them, caught in the crossfire, but this wasn't my doing. This was Mark's. News of the injunction reached Mark quickly. He called me, his calm facade finally cracking. "Mom, what is this? What have you done? You're ruining everything." "I'm ruining everything?" My voice was ice. "You sold my house, Mark. You stole my money. You forged my signature. What did you expect me to do? Roll over and let you walk all over me?" "It was just a temporary measure, Mom. I was going to pay you back. My business was struggling, and I needed a quick infusion of cash. It was a loan. A loan you took without asking, without telling, by committing fraud?" I countered, my voice rising. "That's not a loan, Mark. That's theft." He hung up on me. And that was the last time we spoke directly for a long time. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings. Depositions, discovery, endless meetings with Anya. It was draining, emotionally and physically. My grandchildren, Emily and Tom, kept calling, asking why Grandma wasn't visiting, why Daddy was so upset. I couldn't bring myself to tell them the truth, not yet. Sarah, Mark's wife, called once, heartbroken, saying she had no idea what Mark had done. She swore she would support whatever decision I made, and I believed her. She was a good woman, just caught in her husband's tangled web. The climax came in court. It wasn't a criminal trial, not yet, but a civil case to annul the sale and recover my assets. Mark was there, looking pale and drawn, his usual swagger replaced by a nervous fidgeting. His lawyer, a slick, expensive-looking man, tried to paint me as an elderly, confused woman, easily manipulated, perhaps even having memory issues. He argued that I had willingly given Mark power of attorney and had full knowledge of the sale. But Anya was relentless. She presented the forged signature, expert analysis confirming it wasn't mine. She showed the bank statements, the systematic draining of my accounts. She brought in witnesses, the real estate agent who testified to Mark's insistence on handling all communication, the bank manager who confirmed unusual activity on my accounts. And then, she put me on the stand. It was terrifying, exhilarating. Facing Mark, seeing his eyes, filled with a mixture of fear and resentment, I felt a strength I hadn't known I possessed. I looked directly at the judge, at the jury, and I told my story. Every painful detail, every memory, every nuance of betrayal. "My son," I said, my voice clear and strong, told me he was looking out for my best interests. He told me he was helping me manage my finances. I trusted him with everything. He was my only child. And he used that trust to steal my home, my security, my dignity. I described the moment I learned of the sale, the shock, the feeling of being discarded. I spoke of Arthur, of the dreams we built in that house. I spoke of my fears, my anger, and finally, my resolve. "I am not a confused old woman," I stated, looking at Mark's lawyer, then directly at Mark. "I am a woman who has been deeply wronged. And I am here to reclaim what is mine. Not just my house, but my life." The verdict came swiftly. The sale of my house was nullified. The new buyers received their deposit back, with compensation for their inconvenience. Mark was ordered to return all the funds he had taken from my accounts, with interest. The judge also referred the case to the district attorney for potential criminal fraud charges. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt a sense of vindication, yes, but also a profound sadness. I had won, but at what cost? My relationship with my son was shattered, perhaps beyond repair. The house was mine again. The moment I stepped back inside, it felt different. Not just a home, but a symbol of my resilience. It was no longer just Arthur's legacy, it was mine, a testament to my fight. The media, of course, got wind of the story. Son sells mother's home behind her back, read the headlines. It was humiliating, painful, but also, in a strange way, liberating. The shame wasn't mine to carry. It was Mark's. The criminal charges came. Mark was arrested, tried, and eventually pleaded guilty to fraud and forgery. He received a suspended sentence, community service, and was ordered to undergo financial counseling. The judge took into account his lack of a prior record and the fact that he was supporting a family, but made it clear that his actions were reprehensible. It's been 2 years since then. The house is truly mine now, not just legally, but emotionally. I've made some changes. I had the kitchen renovated, finally replacing the worn countertops Arthur and I picked out decades ago. It feels fresh, new, infused with my own spirit. I've joined a local gardening club, and my garden, once a source of worry, is now a joyful hobby. I host book club meetings in my living room, filling the space with laughter and animated discussions. My relationship with Mark, it's a difficult one. He's tried to apologize, haltingly, awkwardly. He lost his business, his reputation in tatters. Sarah, his wife, eventually left him, unable to reconcile with his actions. He's working a regular job now, trying to rebuild his life. I see my grandchildren, Emily and Tom, regularly. They come to my house, sometimes with Sarah, sometimes on their own. They don't fully understand what happened, but they sense the rift, the unspoken pain. I tell them stories of Arthur, of our life in this house, teaching them about honesty and integrity, hoping the lessons will stick. Do I forgive Mark? It's complicated. The wound is still there, a scar that may never fully heal. But the anger has faded, replaced by a quiet acceptance. I loved my son, and a part of me always will. But I also had to protect myself, to stand up for what was right. And in doing so, I rediscovered my own strength, my own worth. This experience, as terrible as it was, taught me a profound lesson, that trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to mend. And that sometimes, the hardest love is the kind that says, no. You cannot do this to me. So, if you're reading this, if you're going through something similar, if you feel like you're being pushed aside, minimized, or betrayed by someone you love, listen to me. Trust your gut. Speak up. Fight for yourself. Because your dignity, your home, your life, they are yours, and yours alone. And sometimes, you have to let even the people you love the most learn the hard way who it belongs to.